The massive conference hall stretched across the surface of Kepler, 442C like a crystal dome under the alien stars. Inside, the air hummed with tension as representatives from 23 different species took their positions around an enormous circular table. This was the 847th Galactic Peace Summit, and like every summit before it, each delegation brought their finest warriors as both protection and a show of strength. The Korthak delegation entered first, their heavy boots echoing against the polished floor. Each warrior stood 7 feet tall, their thick gray skin covered in ceremonial battle armor that gleamed under the artificial lights. Plasma rifles hung at their sides, and the bone spikes along their necks flared with barely contained aggression. General Thrak led them, his yellow eyes scanning the room like a predator evaluating prey. The Korthak had ruled 3 star systems through pure military might, and they wanted everyone to remember it. Next came the Zenthian Collective, their cybernetic enhancement glowing blue beneath synthetic skin. Commander ZYX, 9 walked with mechanical precision, his optical implants constantly recording and analyzing everything around him. Behind him, a squad of enhanced soldiers moved in perfect formation, their bodies more machine than flesh. The Zenthians had replaced weakness with technology, turning themselves into living weapons that felt no pain and knew no fear. The Veltar delegation buzzed into the hall like a living cloud. Thousands of insect-like creatures no bigger than a human thumb moved as one mind, their individual bodies forming the shape of larger warriors when needed. Chairman Veltar Prime stood at their center, his compound eyes reflecting the light as he communicated with his swarm through chemical signals that made the air shimmer with invisible messages. Other species followed, each bringing their own forms of military might. The rock-skinned granite lords carried weapons that could shatter mountains. The energy-based luminos flickered between visible and invisible, their plasma forms crackling with deadly potential. Even the peaceful-looking Aquarians had brought their sonic warriors, whose songs could drive enemies mad with fear. Then the human delegation arrived. Ambassador Kim Geo walked through the entrance alone. He was average height for his species, maybe 5.5 feet tall, with black hair and dark eyes that seemed friendly rather than threatening. He wore a simple gray diplomatic uniform with no visible weapons, no armor, no enhancement of any kind. In his hand, he carried nothing more dangerous than a brown leather briefcase that looked like it might contain paperwork. The alien representatives turned to stare. Where were the legendary human warriors? Every species in the galaxy had heard stories about Earth's military might. Humans had ended the Proxima conflict single-handedly, crushing a coalition of 6 species in less than a year. They had brought the mighty Centauri Republic to its knees without losing a single major battle. Human soldiers were spoken of in whispers as unstoppable forces that could adapt to any situation and overcome any enemy. Yet here was their representative, looking more like a teacher than a warrior. Chairman Veltar Prime's mandibles clicked together in confusion. The chemical signals from his swarm grew more agitated. Ambassador Kim, his translated voice buzzed through the universal communicator. We expected your military escort. Surely Earth has not abandoned the honored traditions of diplomatic protection. Kim smiled politely and walked to his assigned seat at the great table. Earth's military is always present when needed, Chairman. I assure you, we take these proceedings very seriously. Shall we begin the session? General Thrak's neck spikes flared wider. The last time he had faced humans in battle, his fleet had been destroyed so completely that he still woke from sleep cycles screaming. Where are your warriors, human? Do you mock the strength of the assembled species? Not at all, General. We simply have different ways of approaching these matters. Kim opened his briefcase and withdrew a simple tablet computer. I believe the agenda calls for discussion of territorial disputes first. Around the table, military advisors leaned forward, their hands moving closer to weapons. The Korthak warriors growled low in their throats. The Zenthian soldiers' optical implants glowed brighter as they increased their threat assessment protocols. Even the peaceful Aquarians began to hum with harmonics that made the air vibrate with danger. Kim seemed completely unaware of the growing tension. He activated his tablet and began reviewing files as if he were preparing for routine business, meeting rather than negotiations that could determine the fate of entire star systems. The first item on the agenda was the Korthak claim to the Vega system. General Thrax slammed his massive fist onto the reinforced table, cracking the surface despite its advanced construction. The Vega colonies are ours by right of conquest. Any who challenge this will face the full might of the Korthak Empire. His warriors roared their approval, a sound that shook the walls of the conference hall. Other species began to respond with their own displays of aggression. The Zenthians' weapon systems came online with electronic whines. The Veltar swarm buzzed louder, forming threatening shapes in the air. Through it all, Ambassador Kim simply took notes on his tablet, his expression as calm as someone discussing the weather. He looked up only once, meeting General Thrax's burning gaze with mild curiosity. "General, would you like some tea? I brought some from Earth. I find it helps with clarity during long negotiations." The first session dragged on for 3 hours, filled with threats and aggressive posturing from every species except the humans. When Chairman Veltar Prime finally called for a recess, the tension in the room felt thick enough to cut with a blade. Alien delegates rose from their seats, their various forms of communication, creating a symphony of clicks, growls, electronic pulses, and chemical signals that made the air itself seem alive with hostility. General Thrax wasted no time. The moment Ambassador Kim stood up, the massive Korthak warrior stomped across the room, his heavy boots making the floor shake with each step. Other delegates turned to watch, sensing that something important was about to happen. The general's yellow eyes burned with fury as he cornered the human near the refreshment station, his 7-foot frame looming over Kim like a mountain of muscle and rage. "Human," Thrax's voice rumbled like distant thunder, "your kind brought shame to my people at Wolf 359. My entire battle fleet was destroyed while your ships dance around us like ghosts. Yet you come here without even a single bodyguard. Do you think this is some kind of joke?" Kim calmly poured himself tea from a simple thermos he had brought from Earth. The liquid steamed as it filled his cup, and he took a careful sip before responding. "General, I assure you that Earth takes these proceedings very seriously. Our military leadership is indeed represented at this summit." The Korthak's neck spikes flared wider. "Where? I see only you and 2 others from your species. That woman translating languages, and the man studying our food requirements. Are you telling me that these are your warriors?" By now, other delegates had gathered around them. Commander ZYX, 9 of the Zenthians approached, his optical implants focusing on Kim with mechanical precision. "Human Ambassador, do you expect us to believe that you represent your species' military power? You look like a clerk, not a soldier." The assembled aliens began to make sounds that their translators identified as laughter. The Veltar swarm buzzed with amusement, forming shapes in the air that resembled mocking gestures in their culture. The Granite Lord's rocky faces cracked into what might have been smiles. Even the usually serious Aquarians hummed with what sounded like gentle mockery. Kim set down his teacup and looked around at the gathered delegates with the same mild expression he had worn all day. "Actually, Commander, I should clarify something. I hold the rank of Admiral in the Human Space Navy. I've commanded fleet operations in 14 different star systems over the past 20 years. The laughter began to die away as the aliens processed this information. "Admiral?" This small, quiet man who looked like he spent his time reading books? Kim gestured toward the woman who had been handling translation duties. She was even smaller than him, maybe 5 feet tall, with short black hair and glasses that made her look more like a student than anything else. Dr. Park Sorather served as captain of the destroyer HSN Lightning for 6 years. She participated in the Battle of Proxima Prime, where she personally destroyed 3 Centauri heavy cruisers. The woman looked up from her translation device and gave a small wave, as if she were greeting friends at a social gathering rather than acknowledging her role in one of the most decisive naval battles in galactic history. "And Dr. Lee Miho," Kim continued, pointing to the mild-mannered man who had been quietly studying alien dietary requirements, commanded the 3rd Marine Division during the siege of Kepler 186. His forces held off a Centaurian ground assault for 8 months, while outnumbered 10 to 1. Dr. Lee looked up from his food analysis and smiled politely. "The local cuisine is quite interesting," he said to no one in particular. "I'm particularly curious about the Korthak protein synthesis methods. The assembled delegates stare at the three humans in stunned silence. These ordinary-looking people, who seem more suited to teaching in schools or working in laboratories, were claiming to be veteran military commanders? It seemed impossible. Chairman Veltar Prime's compound eyes shifted colors as his emotional state changed. This is highly unusual. Your species trains diplomats to be warriors. Kim shook his head and took another sip of his tea. No, Chairman, we train warriors to be diplomats. On Earth, we learned long ago that the best way to prevent wars is to have people who truly understand we're making the decisions about peace. Commander ZYX9's optical implants whirred as they processed this concept. You mean that all of your diplomatic corps has military training? Extensive military training, Dr. Park Sora confirmed, adjusting her glasses. I studied xenobiology after my naval service because understanding other species is crucial to both fighting them and making peace with them. Knowledge of your enemy can prevent the need for conflict entirely. Dr. Lee Miho nodded in agreement. I specialize in alien psychology and cultural studies. When you spent years learning how to defeat someone, you also learn what they value most. That makes it easier to find solutions that everyone can accept. General Thrax's aggressive posture began to shift. The implications of what he was hearing started to sink in. These humans hadn't just sent random diplomats to the peace summit. They had sent their actual military leadership, disguised as scholars and translators and bureaucrats. How many of your diplomats are actually soldiers? He asked, his voice quieter now. Admiral Kim smiled. All of them, General, every single one. The afternoon session began with renewed tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. The alien delegates had spent the recess discussing the shocking revelation about Earth's diplomatic corps, and now they looked at the three humans with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. What had seemed like weakness now appeared to be something far more dangerous. Commander ZYX, 9 of the Zentians, stood abruptly, his cybernetic implants pulsing bright red as data streamed across his artificial eyes. The mechanical parts of his body whirred and clicked as he accessed his fleet's communication systems. The Rigel colonies belong to the Zentian collective by right of technological superiority. We have already positioned our battle fleet at the edge of the system. If these negotiations fail, we will take what is ours by force. The holographic display above the table flickered to life, showing the tactical positions of Zentian warships. Dozens of sleek vessels hung in space just beyond the system's outer planets, their weapons charged and ready. The message was clear: agree to their terms or face military action. Around the room, other species began to respond with their own shows of force. General Thrak activated his wrist communicator, and suddenly the display showed Korthak dreadnoughts moving into attack formation. The Veltar swarm buzzed loudly as Chairman Prime transmitted coordinates to their hive ships. Even the peaceful Aquarians revealed that their sonic ships were hidden in the system's asteroid belt. Within minutes, the holographic display showed dozens of alien fleets all positioned for battle, their weapons powered up and targeting systems online. The carefully maintained piece of the summit balanced on the edge of a knife, ready to collapse into the largest space battle the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Kim watched the display with the same calm expression he had worn all day. As weapon systems came online and military commanders barked orders to their fleets, he simply stood up and walked to the central control panel. "Might I address the assembly?" he asked politely, as if requesting permission to speak at a school meeting rather than try and prevent a galactic war. Without waiting for an answer, he connected his tablet to the room's holographic system. The display changed instantly, showing the same star systems but from a completely different perspective. Instead of military positions and weapon ranges, the hologram now showed trade routes, resource flows, and economic connections. "My species learned something important during our own history," Kim began, his voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. "We fought 2 massive world wars that nearly destroyed our entire planet. Millions died, cities burned, entire nations disappeared. And when it was over, we realized something that changed how we think about conflict forever." The hologram shifted, showing Earth's history in fast forward. Wars rage across continents, but then the images changed to show the same regions in peacetime. Cities rebuilt, people working together, children playing where battles had once been fought. The greatest victory is not the one where you destroy your enemy, Kim continued. It's the one where you never have to fight at all. Every war has a cost that goes far beyond immediate destruction. Look at what you're preparing to destroy. The display zoomed in on the Rigel colonies. The images showed not just military targets, but schools and hospitals, research facilities and farms. Children of multiple species played together in parks. Scientists worked side by side on projects that benefited everyone. The Rigel colonies produced medical compounds that have saved billions of lives across 17 different star systems. Zenthian manufacturing feeds the technological needs of every species here. Korthak mining operations provide the raw materials that fuel all of our expansions into new worlds. Dr. Park Sora stepped forward, her small frame somehow commanding attention from creatures many times her size. We've been watching all of you prepare for war, while we've been preparing for peace. Every detail of the summit was planned to reduce the chances of conflict. She gestured around the room, and suddenly the aliens began to see things differently. The seating arrangement breaks up traditional military alliances. You've all been sitting next to species you normally cooperate with, mixed in with those you usually fight. The timing of our meal breaks prevented anyone from holding private strategy meetings. Even the lighting has been calibrated to reduce aggressive impulses in all of your species. Dr. Lee Miho nodded and activated another display. The refreshments were chosen specifically for their calming effects on your various biologies. Nothing harmful, but they do tend to make rational thought easier and emotional responses less intense. The alien delegates looked around the room with new eyes, suddenly seeing the careful manipulation that had been guiding their behavior for hours. They had been so focused on the absence of human military might that they had missed the subtle warfare being waged on their own minds. General Thrax's yellow eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. You've been controlling us from the moment we arrived. Admiral Kim shook his head. Not controlling, General. Guiding. There's an important difference. Control requires force, which breeds resistance. Guidance requires understanding, which creates cooperation. The holographic display changed one final time, showing detailed psychological profiles of every species present. Their motivations, fears, cultural triggers, and decision-making patterns were all laid out with scientific precision. This is what human military training actually teaches. Kim explained, we study our potential enemies so completely that we know exactly what they want, what they fear, and what they need. And once you truly understand someone, you can usually find a way to give them what they want without taking what you need. General Thrak had heard enough. The revelation that humans had been manipulating the entire summit filled him with a rage that made his vision turn red around the edges. His massive frame trembled with barely controlled fury as he rose to his full 7-foot height, his ceremonial armor creaking and whining under the stress of his expanding muscles. Enough of this deception, he roared, his voice echoing off the crystal dome above them. The Korthak Empire will not be played like children with toys. We are warriors, not puppets to dance for your amusement. His hand moved a plasma rifle at his side, and the weapon powered up with a high-pitched whine that cut through the air like a blade. The other Korthak warriors responded instantly, their own weapons materializing in their hands with practiced efficiency. Energy cells glowed bright blue as targeting systems came online. We will settle this matter the traditional way, Thrak continued, his yellow eyes fixed on Admiral Kim. Through strength, through blood, through the honest application of superior firepower. The other species reacted like a chain reaction of violence. Commander ZYX-9's optical implants flared bright red as his combat programming activated. His Zenthian soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their enhanced bodies unfolding hidden weapons that had been built into their cybernetic limbs. Plasma cannons emerged from arm mounts while targeting lasers painted red dots across the room. The Veltar swarm exploded into frenzied activity, thousands of individual insects reshaping themselves into larger combat forms. Chairman Prime's calm demeanor vanished as his species' hive mind shifted into war mode, their buzz rising to a pitch that made the air itself vibrate with menace. Even species that had seen peaceful moments before revealed their hidden weapons. The rock-skinned granite lords produced hammers that could shatter starship hulls. The energy-based luminos began to flicker between dimensions, preparing to phase shift through matter and strike from impossible angles. The Aquarian's harmonic weapon started generating subsonic frequencies that could drive enemies insane with fear. In seconds, the conference room had transformed from a diplomatic meeting into a powder keg ready to explode. Dozens of the galaxy's deadliest weapons were pointed in every direction, their wielders waiting for someone to make the first move that would turn the Peace Summit into a massacre. Admiral Kim remained perfectly calm in the center of this storm of violence. He reached into his leather briefcase and withdrew a device no larger than his palm, black and unremarkable except for a small screen and several control buttons. With movements as casual as someone checking the weather, he connected it to the room's holographic display system. The change was instant and devastating. The holographic projectors came alive with a three-dimensional tactical map that filled the air above them. Every ship, every weapon platform, every piece of military hardware, and the entire star system appeared in perfect detail. But these weren't the alien vessels they had expected to see. Red targeting brackets surrounded every single non-human ship. The Korthak dreadnoughts that General Thrak thought were hidden behind the system's outer moon were outlined in precise detail. Their shield frequencies, weapon capabilities, crew complements, and structural weak points displayed with impossible accuracy. The HSN Ghostwalker has been maintaining targeting locks on your flagship for the past 6 hours, General. Kim announced in the same conversational tone he might use to discuss lunch plans. Our quantum torpedoes are already programmed with your ship's exact shield harmonics. Commander ZYX-9's optical implants went wild, cycling through every scanning frequency his enhanced vision could access. Impossible. Our sensors show no human vessels in this system. Admiral Kim smiled and gestured to the holographic display. The Zenthian fleet's quantum encryption was broken approximately 15 minutes after your arrival. We've been reading your internal communications, monitoring your tactical planning, and tracking every movement of your ships since yesterday. Dr. Park Sora, the small woman who had been quietly handling translation duties, stepped forward. Her voice carried an authority that made seasoned warriors step back despite themselves. General Thrak, if you check your tactical officer's readings, you'll notice some interesting gravitational anomalies around your vessels. Those would be our destroyers, positioned for optimal firing solutions. The alien military commanders frantically activated their personal communicators, demanding reports from their ships. The responses that came back turned their confident expressions into masks of shock and fear. Human warships, completely invisible to their most advanced sensors, had surrounded every single alien fleet without triggering so much as a proximity alarm. Green targeting brackets appeared around dozens of seemingly empty coordinates in space. Each bracket represented a human ship that had been watching, waiting, and preparing for battle while remaining completely undetected. Dr. Lee Miho, the mild-mannered man who had been studying food samples, looked up from his work with an apologetic expression. I should probably mention that the refreshments contain mild neurological inhibitors. Nothing harmful, of course, but they do slow reaction times by approximately 8%. Old military habit, I'm afraid. The room fell into absolute silence as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just surrounded the alien fleets with superior firepower. They had drugged the enemy commanders to slow their responses, hacked their communications to read their plans, and positioned their weapons with surgical precision while remaining completely invisible. General Thrak's plasma rifle trembled in his hands as he stared at the holographic display. Dozens of human weapons were pointed directly at him, and he hadn't even known they existed until this moment. "How?" he whispered. The conference room felt like a tomb as the alien delegates stared at the holographic display, showing their complete tactical defeat. Weapons that had been raised in anger now hung limply in trembling hands. The greatest military minds in the galaxy had been outmaneuvered so completely that they couldn't even comprehend how it had happened. Admiral Kim closed the tactical display with a simple gesture and returned his device to the leather briefcase. The holographic projectors went dark, but the memory of what they had shown burned in every alien mind present. He walked slowly around the great circular table, his footsteps the only sound in the vast chamber. "Chairman, honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of absolute certainty. This demonstration illustrates exactly why Earth doesn't bring its military to peace summits in the traditional sense. You've been looking at our military the entire time. He paused beside General Thrax's chair, close enough that the massive Korthak could have reached out and crushed him with one hand. Yet the general sat frozen, his yellow eyes wide with something that might have been terror. My species spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare, Kim continued, his words measured and deliberate. We fought each other across every continent of our world. We created weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We built armies that could conquer nations. And through all that bloodshed, we learned the most important lesson in the history of combat. Dr. Park Sora stepped forward, her small frame somehow more intimidating now than any of the armored warriors around the table. The most effective weapon isn't the biggest gun or the fastest ship. It's not the strongest armor or the most advanced technology. The most effective weapon is the ability to end conflicts before they become necessary. The holographic display flickered back to life, but this time it showed something different. Images of Earth appeared in the air above them, but not the peaceful world they might have expected. These were scenes from humanity's violent past. Soldiers marching across battlefields, cities burning under bombardment, massive armies clashing in conflicts that consumed entire continents. We didn't become peaceful because we were weak, Dr. Lee Miho explained, his gentle voice somehow carrying more weight than any shouted threat. We became peaceful because we were too good at war. We learned that once you truly understand how to destroy something, you also understand how to protect it. Admiral Kim resumed his slow walk around the table. Every human diplomat trains for decades in military strategy, logistics, psychology, and combat operations. Not because we love war, but because we understand it so completely that we can see all the ways to avoid it. Commander ZYX-9's optical implants dimmed as his combat program shut down, replaced by analysis routines trying to process what he was hearing. You could have destroyed all of our fleets before the summit even began. Yes, Kim replied without hesitation. We could have eliminated every ship, every weapon, every military installation belonging to every species in this room. We could have done it months ago, while your fleets were still in their home systems preparing for this mission. The simple honesty of the statement hit the aliens like a physical blow. They had come here expecting to negotiate from positions of strength, never realizing that their strength was an illusion that existed only because humanity allowed it to exist. But destruction is easy, Kim continued. Any species with sufficient technology can blow things up. Creation, cooperation, building something that benefits everyone. These require true strength. These require wisdom that goes beyond simple firepower. Dr. Park accessed the room's display system again, showing the carefully prepared peace accords that had been ready since before the summit began. The Kepler Accords address every territorial dispute, resource allocation issue, and trade disagreement that brought you all here. The Rigel colonies maintain their independence under joint protection. Mining rights in the Vega system are distributed according to actual need rather than military capability. Trade agreements benefit everyone based on their unique strengths. Chairman Veltar Prime's compound eyes shifted through several colors as his emotional state cycled between confusion, fear, and something that might have been admiration. You knew how this would end before we even arrived. We knew how we wanted it to end, Kim corrected. Whether it actually ended this way depended on your choices. We prepared for 17 different scenarios, including the one where you all decided to fight instead of talk. General Thrax finally found his voice, though it came out as little more than a whisper. What would have happened if we had chosen to fight? Dr. Lee Miho looked genuinely sad at the question. Your fleets would have been disabled within minutes. No casualties if possible. We prefer not to kill when we can avoid it. Your crews would have been returned safely to their homes. And then we would have implemented the same peace agreements anyway, because the problems that brought you here would still need solving. The signing ceremony that followed felt more like a funeral than a celebration. Each species representative approached the accords with the stunned expressions of beings who had just discovered that everything they thought they knew about power was wrong. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Admiral Kim received a priority message on his personal communicator. He read it quickly, his expression never changing, then closed the device and adjusted his departure schedule. Dr. Park noticed a subtle reaction. More work, Admiral? Kim looked out through the crystal dome at the alien fleets beginning their journeys home. Their weapons powered down for the first time in months. Somewhere in distant sectors of the galaxy, other conflicts were brewing. Other species were preparing for wars that didn't need to happen. Always, Doctor. The universe is full of people who think violence is the answer. Someone has to show them better questions.